Does Canada have a national identity? Yes. In fact, if you stop and think about it, the national identity Canada has is the one that the rest of the world has been making fun of for as long as I've been alive. Canadians are too nice. Canadians are too polite. Canadians are very helpful. After 9/11, goodness, lots of people who couldn't go to New York because of the tragedy ended up staying in Canada for free in people's homes. When I was a child, I was taught that Canada is part of the peacekeeping nations. We don't like to go to war. We show up after the war is done and try to settle shit down. When I was little, of course, they were also being more honest about Israel, and what I was taught was that if a tragedy happens anywhere in the world, Israel will be one of the first countries there offering help. And actually, if you pay attention, that's still true today. But of course, there is this, global Jew hate that you can't seem to get over. But let's get back to Canada. We have the Battle of the Tyrants. Petty tyrants. So, the bloated felon is now calling Dougie Ford Flunky Ford, saying that he's a less charismatic version of his drug-addled brother. All I see are two fat bullies trying to out-bully each other. However, there's something that you might want to pay attention to. One important edge in the trade war. The United States citizens don't want it. Canadians, we're willing to suck it up because your president in the United States won't stop being a motherfucking asshole to Canadians. And I know Canadians aren't supposed to know those words, but guess what? We do. And I have watched, all of my country has watched, as a felon talks down to a country that provides 60% of its crude oil, that provides a huge chunk of their electricity, that has a trade deficit because you buy more from us than we do from you. And that's the thing that got the bloated felon off on this whole tangent to begin with when it comes to Canada. He started picking on Canada before he did the tariffs around the world. He did the tariffs around the world to justify the fact that he was being an asshole to Canada, even though they're illegal. I will be the first to point out that Canada is not what it used to be. Since we've had a government that's been doing controlled decline for better part of 50 years, then this is why this accommodation hollowed out Canadian nationalism. It's not just being about hockey or things like that. It's not just about knowing that the world wouldn't have insulin if it wasn't for Canadians. It's the fact that Canada, having taken this route of controlled decline, has been forced to up this idea of multiculturalism. You want to know what multiculturalism is? These teeth. Not like they used to be, because unfortunately I had almost a decade where I was having trouble with keeping food down, and much like jockeys, constantly regurgitating has weakened my front teeth so that I actually lost all the little serrations. But my front teeth are specifically what a dentist referred to as Chinese teeth, because my front teeth have like a curve on the inside. It's referred to as a spoon tooth in dentistry, apparently, and it is exclusively known to be part of Chinese culture. It comes from the Chinese race, which means somewhere in me I have Chinese, and I also can tell that because of my hair. It may not be beautiful and black, but every other aspect of it is exactly the way someone who is from Asia would have. The dark circles under my eyes, that is the last remnants of the melanin that I once had when either my mother came from Israel and my father came from India, or vice versa, I'm not sure. But either way, whether they met in India, because there is a Jewish community in India, or if they met on the road on the way to Romania, where they settled, I start out in countries that are substantially darker than I am. But that would have been 1,000 years ago. So my melanin is not active anymore. That is actually Canadian multiculturalism. I am the embodiment of it. I am all sorts of things. I am English, I am Indian, I am Israeli, Jewish, I'm Romanian, I'm a gypsy. All sorts of things. That is what Canadian multiculturalism is supposed to be about. Instead, Canada decided that upping immigration to deal with the, again, controlled decline, that is hollowing out Canadians, because it's not a melting pot anymore, especially with certain cultures that really don't want to have democracies. They're only here to undermine them. So all of a sudden we have parallel societies trying to form. And ultimately, and no one's going to like me for this, but the ultimate bedrock Canadian identity is we're a bunch of European settlers stealing from the First Nations, much like it is in the United States.